It's been a while since I've written anything related to the Disney Corporation, and I'm sure you can understand why. A lot has been going on since my last post. I've received a lot of questions and concerns from folks who read my first-hand account of Mowgli's Palace, a resort that was built and abandoned by Disney. I want to thank everyone who mirrored my post. It's been taken down from a few places, mostly corporate sites that were easily leaned on by a larger power. However, for every nuked topic or disappearing blog post, it seems like 100 more have popped up. This is something Disney will have to face. There's no turning back for them, and none for me either. I'm definitely being followed. For the first month or two, I chalked it up to my paranoia. Any casual glance or half smile in my direction set me off, causing hairs to stand up on the back of my neck. The first one of these occurrences I was able to spot was when I saw a telephone worker milling around my apartment complex. He was middle-aged, doughy, dressed as you'd expect, but something just seemed off about him. I couldn't place it, but I knew this wasn't just my imagination acting up. He was awkward and out of place, not somebody who was comfortable with doing his routine job. I followed him around a corner, only to lose him there. When I turned back to go home, there he was, staring directly at me about 10 feet behind me, expressionless. "Exploring?" he asked. That was all he said, and there was an accusing tone to his voice.
Seriously, what blue-collar phone jockey does that?
I guess that's the worst part. Never feeling safe and never feeling alone. That and the occasional Disney merchandise for me was left somewhere for me to find. Little rubber Mickeys in the mailbox, a Disney Adventure magazine on my bookshelf. They hide little Mickeys everywhere. 3 circles, one big, 2 small, in the silhouette of the famous mouse's head. I started keeping a running list of the hidden Mickeys I found. Coffee cup rings on my coffee table. Colored glass bottles left on a doorstep. Graffiti on the wall on my way to work. A huge earth, small sun and moon and tropical occasions, etc. They're everywhere. People have emailed me about this as well. If you repost anything, I'd have to say, you're gonna start finding those son of a bitch outlines. I guarantee it. The best one by far, one that actually made me laugh because the horror of it all, was a drawing in chalk next to my car. I was taken aback at it by first, walking through the parking garage, keeping an eye out for people following me. The outline seemed like a perfect match for, well, a murder victim, you're probably familiar with if you read my last posts. Written in yellow paint, I think, there was a single word: retract. The only good thing that has come out of all this is that I know I'm not the only one who's seen something they shouldn't have. I'm not going to give you the others' names, because, well, if I have to tell you why, you wouldn't have been paying attention. So the first guy, who I'll refer to as a researcher, goes to Disney parks whenever he can, all throughout the year. He's not going to have fun or enjoy the rides. He's looking for the gascots. There's been a long tradition, apparently, of people reporting strange patrons throughout the park. Silent, motionless, staring patrons of every age, shape, and size. Men, women, adults, children, and teens. All wearing Disney-themed gas masks. Way back when, Disney would get tons of complaints about oddly dressed folks following others around the park. Folks who would merge into crowds to disappear. Later on, the gas masks caused folks to draw other conclusions, and reports of possible terrorists and bombers started flowing. All these reports most likely went straight into the trash can. I know I can't find any sign of such occasion reported on by the media, although you should be aware of the fact that Disney can pretty much control its press like no other. So researcher goes to the parks, talks to a few people, and tries not to draw any attention. He'll just ask 3 or 4 families if they've seen his friend, who's wearing a, quote, funny mask. He has yet to see a gascot for himself, though on one occasion, a child pointed them toward Frontier Town and cried out,
"Mommy, I want a goofy air mask too."
Another fella, who I'll refer to as Lifeguard, worked at a Disney water park from 2001 to 2003. He stood at the top of a huge water slide and made sure none of the kids got too rowdy. He passed the kids through one at a time, telling them over and over again to be safe, keep their arms in, and so on. One day, this fat kid, referred to as Fatty, goes down the tube and doesn't come out the other end. The lifeguard sends 2 or 3 kids afterward. The whole thing moves at a steady clip, so naturally you'd expect that if Fatty got stuck, the kids that followed him were stuck too. But not so. Only the big kid disappears. Everyone else comes out the other end like nothing's wrong. The lifeguard shuts down the ride, much to the aggravation of the kids waiting before he can go through any of Disney's strict procedures. Before he can even get through Disney's procedures, splash, the fat kid finally comes out. They pull him out of the water, and his skin is already blue and his eyes are wide.
He was shaking, murmuring, "No face, kids," and "Stop squeezing."
The kid was okay, in case you're wondering. He got carted off to the medical center. When the lifeguard was told to open the slide back up, he made a big stink about how it clearly wasn't safe. Despite his complaints, he was threatened with being fired, and he begrudgingly opened the slide again. From that point on, he kept a closer eye on the kids. Every so often, they'd come out in the wrong order. Never as stunned as the fat kid was back then, but they always had a vague look of concern. Sort of a dreamy half-stupor that seemed as if they were trying to figure out what reality was. They'd take on some sort of water and choke a bit, and they never come back up to ride again after being rescued. I read the lifeguard's emails with the same sort of unease you might be feeling right now. I wanted them to share his own story, but in the end he didn't want to expose himself that way.
Honestly, I can't blame him. A woman who I'll refer to as Snow White, which wasn't the actual role she played, was a character in the park, and she had a nice little tidbit for me.
Do you know what happens when a costume employee just suddenly drops dead in a suit? Like 1 second he's taking a picture of little Jimmy and the next he's had a fatal stroke? Whenever this happens, a second costume mascot in the area has to sit with the corpse on a curb or bench and wait for a designated dry cleaner to arrive and cart the body away. All while the patrons have no idea they're sitting with a dead body for photos. Feel free to check your photo albums at this point. That was bad, but another fellow, who I'll call Janitor, went completely off the creepy charts. Disney World, and probably others, is built with a series of underground tunnels just below your feet. 3 stories worth. Anything and everything you can imagine is down there, but only for use of the employees. They're called utilidors, short for utility corridors. Basically, that's the reason you don't see any characters at a place or janitors wandering. They pop in and out of hidden doors and travel through a concealed town you're walking on. Janitor told me something that might be common knowledge, but was none of less news to me. Walt Disney had several apartments built into his parks. There's one above Cinderella's castle, there's one in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. They're all over the place. More than that, there are nightclubs, movie theater, bowling alley, and much more. All behind doors built right into the whimsical facades you pass by without a second look. Club 22 is one such hidden area. If you have the cash to join the club, you don't, then you'll have access to it and much more. Club 22 is a place where anything goes. Disney Company calls the places dark zones, where the squeaky clean facade of Mickey Mouse is gone, giving way to drinking, drugs, and yes, sex. Conversely, the rest of the park is the bright zone, with the utilidors being the gray zone. As far as Janitor said, it wasn't always that way. It was more of a slow decline in the gradual realization of social norms within that elite group. The reason he knows all this? You may have already guessed, he's cleaned the places under there. After a lengthy background check and a non-disclosure form, Janitor moved up from a park attendant to one of the Dark Zone's cleaning crew members. Now, before you get some satanic human sacrifice vision in your head, Janitor saw nothing of the sort. Lots of empty alcohol bottles? Yes. Used condoms scattered like deflated balloons? Oh yeah. He cleaned up his share of blood, piss, vomit, and cum, but it was all down to the unrestricted behavior of patrons as opposed to any sort of cult. At least that's how he sees it in retrospect. All that trash and profane crap went into a furnace and mingled with the smoke of a quaint cottage's chimney. So if you've ever been to Disney World, just know you're breathing ultra-condensed sin. Backing up this information was a guy who we'll refer to as Hammer. Hammer mailed me the old-fashioned way, though I don't know how he got my home address. He sent me photocopies of work papers proving his employment with the instruction to burn them when I was convinced, which I did gladly. Hammer was someone who worked around the Disney park, doing demolition and construction stuff. At one point, he approached a superior regarding some strange plans. There was a wide rectangular area marked off in the blueprints about the size of a supermarket. The area was left unnamed and only bore the words, "Do not dig." Not only was his superior in the dark, but he was super purposefully in the dark. He didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to know about it, and ended the conversation with, "This space intentionally left blank." Hammer didn't get it. This area just seemed like a waste of space, and it was directly conflicting with the work the team had been given. He started poking around the area on his off time, only finding a derelict steel door and a great span of concrete just beyond. It was a, quote, supermarket's worth of blank gray floor. Soon afterward, Hammer started picking out gascots from the crowds out there. Unlike all other reports, these things would just stand in full view of the guy.
They wouldn't be standing trying to hide in the crowd. They'd cluster together in the distance, or they'd just be pressed against a wall when he turned a corner. He said they moved weird, like they were weak or injured, like a deer that's been run down and can't flee anymore. The gas masks, the Disney character faces with filters jammed in, he noted that they seemed wet on the inside, with condensation on the car window, tiny beads of water glimmer behind the glass, making it impossible for the people wearing the masks to actually see. Probing further, Hammer started asking questions to anyone and everyone who had been working in the park for a decade or more. He hit dead ends throughout until he was directed to Ida, an elderly woman who worked in a restaurant on Main Street. She'd been there since way back, and though nobody had the balls to ask directly, everyone knew she had plenty of terrible stories to tell. Hammer asked about the empty space, then about the gas mask customers, and at first he thought he received the same repeated no answers he'd gotten so far, but Ida was quiet. Room 0, she croaked, a single shaking hand placed to her cheek, as if she were a little girl fearing a father's punishment. She didn't meet the man's gaze for the entire conversation. Room 0, as it turned out, was yet another hidden room, just like the apartments and Club 22. However, its sheer size and its spot deep beneath the park set it apart from any of the other fun dark zones. It was a bomb shelter. Room 0 was built to withstand a massive attack, be it conducted by foreign or domestic enemies. Room 0 was to be stocked with enough rations to feed the entire park's average number of patrons at any given moment, and housed a smaller yet lavish panic room as sorts for Disney higher-ups. During World War II, official Disney gas masks were actually produced for children to wear in the event of an attack. The idea was that it would be less scary for kids if Mickey's face was emblazoned on the wartime safety device. Yes, I know the obvious problems with that. During the Cold War scare of the 60s, when Disney World was constructed, Room 0 was stocked with similar masks as well. Whether they cared about the fears of children, or were just doing this for callous branding, the things found their way down there. What's more, some genius decided that kids would then be frightened about the gas masks their parents wore, so all masks for adult and child were made to comply to this stupid standard. Ida described it as treating a wound with lemon juice. None of this explained what Hammer had been seeing, though. Not only the seemingly supernatural appearances, but the emptied-out room as well.
I've been in there,
he explained.
There's nothing but cement floor and 4 walls.
No. Ida shook her head and covered her mouth, stifling a sob. You've been on top of it. This is the story she told to explain. Someone or something sounded the alarm one day when the park was at full capacity. It was supposedly an air attack. Security ushered everyone down into the tremendous shelter. There they were ordered to put on their gas masks and hunker down for the duration of the assault. Everything was quiet for about 30 minutes, save for the crying children and the frightened whispers. No one wanted to die, so they were, in a way, grateful for this strange measure of safety. Then the first scream rang out.
Hi!
A man shouted.
Quit bitching!
Waves of shrieks and yelps rippled through the crowd, from one wall to the other, back and forth.
Who's running around? Settle down!
Someone hollered.
Who's laughing? This isn't funny! Ow! Who stepped on my foot?
Despite security guards urging them to calm down and keep their cool, the crowd became more and more agitated until finally, after nearly an hour of madness, the lights flickered and it died. What followed could only be described as utter chaos. In the dark, only the wails of the young and the anguished cries of adults could be heard. In a massive swelling din that bloodied the ears of all within that echo chamber. A group of staff members and a select few patrons made it out of the door, ready to face the war above rather than the insanity below. What they found, of course, was a desolate yet untouched theme park. The music continued to play, echoing through silent storybook towns. Upon returning to Room 0, the few who stood at the top of the steel staircase that led down into the pitch blackness heard no sign of the previous fray. There was only silence. Ida herself descended that staircase despite the begging of those she left above. She reached the reinforced doors, herself now awash in darkness, hearing only the buzzing in her ears. A single voice came out of the darkness. The echo made it impossible to tell whether the balking, raspy voice was either at the back of the shelter or right in front of her face. The voice said,
Shut the door, dear. You're letting out the code.
Gripped by terror, Ida did just that. Within days, the entire thing, shelter, staircase, and all, was covered with feet upon feet of cement. Air systems and generators above its ceiling were removed, creating the large empty space. They're all still down there, Ida told Hammer. Down there with whoever that was. You might have noticed that I used Ida's name. Unfortunately, she passed away soon after telling her story, supposedly from an accidental fall when getting out of bed to turn on a light. She was such a company devotee, the paper reported, to the point her entire bedroom was covered in Mickey silhouettes.